security boundaries. What are they and what do they control? This is a big part of IT. You have to know what your security boundaries are. And in the past, we've really just pretty much considered it to be our internal organization. And then we'd have a firewall to protect us from the evil internet. And then anything outside of our organization was evil and should be avoided at all costs. Well, it turns out that a lot of the evil people are actually inside of our own organization. Might not always be malicious, might just be as a matter of careless handling of data, things like that. But we have threats really everywhere, inside our organization, outside of our organization, in people that work from home, and in how they handle data. Data loss can really happen just about anywhere, and it can really happen from our own users as well as the IT department itself. There's really nowhere that's completely safe from data loss. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what this really entails. It really goes beyond just things like share and NTFS permissions. Okay, again, this is where traditionally we would have something like a file server, and we'd have NTFS permissions or share permissions to prevent who could access that data. Problem is, a lot of times people that can access that data and have authorization to access it mishandle it. And so that data still gets abused or shared where it really shouldn't get shared. So it goes well beyond just sharing NTFS permissions. Or hacks. We're really concerned about someone hacking into our system and stealing our data. Well, a lot of data loss really doesn't need a hacker. All it really needs is a careless employee or a malicious insider to be able to compromise that data. Let's take a look at some examples here. First of all, here's a few data loss cases. Actually, one of them I have is not even on here. Years ago, a friend of mine who I worked with came to me with some papers in his hand, and he said, "Look what I just pulled off of the printer." It was a printout of everybody's salaries within the company. I was on that list. I was at the bottom of the list. Now, should that have happened? No. First of all, I shouldn't have been the lowest paid employee at that company. That was a crime. But also, that data should have never been left on the printer. Now I know who left it on the printer. It was someone in HR. She was a really sweet person, super nice person, completely innocent mistake. Nevertheless, it was a mistake, and it was a significant data leak. So should have never happened. Also, this is probably maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago, my own doctor's office. I had a doctor's appointment. I can't remember all the details, but I was supposed to fill out a form or something like that before I went to the appointment. So they emailed me something. Turns out they emailed me a form that belonged to a different patient, and it had some medical information on there, had their name on there. I can't remember all the details, but it had more information that I should have been privy to. I should have never seen that information. I did contact the doctor's office. I said, "Hey, this was not intended for me. You should not have leaked this information." That could have put them in a potentially litigious position, okay? That person's data, whoever they were, they could have sued the doctor's office. I could have sued the doctor's office. At the very least, I was also concerned with what they were doing with my information. Did they mix this up as two patients? Did they send my information to that patient and that patient's information to me? Okay, it was a pretty big mix-up. Also, my mother, she passed away just a few years ago. She was 103 years old when she passed. But because of her health and stuff like that, I usually had to take her to doctor's offices. I was usually the emergency contact. I would usually fill out the medical forms for her and stuff like that. 3 of the doctors that she used to visit have sent me letters in recent years saying, "We've had a data breach, your information's been compromised, but as a free benefit, we will give you free credit monitoring for the next," I don't know what it was, 2 or 3 years or something like that. Well, thanks. That doesn't really help much, though. All that tells me is if somebody has gotten a hold of my information and compromised the data or gotten into my credit somehow or something like that. So it's really just a Band-Aid on a bullet hole is what that amounts to. And this happens all the time. Okay, outside of my own examples, there's also things like this. Tesla had a personally identifiable information leak, okay? 2 former employees leaked other employees' names and addresses and social security numbers. 75,000 current and former staff members at Tesla had their data leaked by these employees. I think that was in 2023 that happened. Well, data loss prevention, such as what we can have in Microsoft Purview, that may have gone a long ways towards preventing that. Nothing's bulletproof. Understand that, first of all. But things like data loss prevention in Microsoft Purview can go a long ways towards preventing that sort of thing. How about this one? Proofpoint. This is I don't know a lot about them, but there's some kind of a security company, cybersecurity company or something like that. Well, even they had a data leak. There was a departing employee that went to a competing organization. They downloaded confidential sales data to a USB drive and took it with them to a competitor. This kind of thing happens all the time, by the way. Bitter employees, employees that want to take a customer list to a new competitor, poaching employees or poaching customers, that sort of thing. That happens all the time. Well, again, Microsoft Purview and data loss prevention could potentially help to prevent that sort of thing. This would have to involve endpoint protection. So with this sort of thing that happened at Proofpoint, you can set it up so that it is going to disallow copying data to an external USB flash drive, for example. There's a company called Slater and Gordon. They had an internal data exposure there where an employee sent emails to all staff and it exposed sensitive internal information such as employee salaries, performance ratings, business strategies, all that sort of thing was shared when it should not have been. Now, especially if your whole business is to protect people, to protect their data, and yet you're the one that released their data, that's a professional embarrassment. And it could also put a company within some legal jeopardy there as well. In 2025, Discord also had an issue that took place with this. What happened was individual users' selfies, their emails, their IDs, a lot of different kind of stuff like that was exposed in a data leak. This was a privacy violation for millions of users, and it could result in increased phishing attacks. Once a dishonest party has access to that kind of information, they can start to text bomb you, or smishing is what that would be, or phishing, where they will send you emails trying to solicit information. So yeah, these are just a few examples. And this happens all the time where data gets leaked. And again, it goes well beyond hackers or share permissions and NTFS permissions. These are people that probably already, especially in the case of share and NTFS permissions, these are people that already have access. We've granted them access. They're supposed to be able to access that data for performing their job. Thing is, if they mishandle it, that's still a data breach. And we'll be taking a look at some of this as we go. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from CBT Nuggets. Also, if you're new to IT or are interested in an IT career, visit cbtnuggets.com and sign up for a free trial.